Renato Lopez seemed to have it all. A rising career, a stable relationship, projects, presence, talent, recognition, and a future that promised so much more. But the step normally connected to success ended abruptly and tragically. On November 23, 2016, Renato and his friend Omar Giron went to a meeting that, on the surface, represented an attractive job opportunity in the state of Mexico. The vehicle's route was recorded by security cameras. Those images would become the last ones captured before everything changed forever. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that what happened that night was not an isolated incident, but the outcome of tensions and decisions that escalated into violence. Was it an impulsive attack, or was it a pre-planned execution? We invite you to watch the following case to the end, so you don't miss any details. The case of Renato Lopez. Every day we live with evil. We witness the darkest side of human behavior. The suffering caused by one individual to others is a latent presence in our society. In Criminal Investigators, we will delve into that dark side of humanity. We will bring the most perverse crimes to the screen and try to enter the minds of those beings who commit the most terrible acts. I'm Alex, and today I bring you another case. But before we begin, I want you to tell me where you're watching us from. We really like to know how far these stories reach. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share this video if you think someone else might be interested. And now, let's begin. Renato Lopez was born on March 11, 1983, in Mexico City. From early on, his life was intertwined with the entertainment world. He shared his name with his father, a renowned composer, singer, lyricist, and voice actor, whose voice marked an entire generation. Few details are known about his mother. Some versions point to Swedish ancestry, but that aspect was always kept private. When he was still a child, the family moved to the United States, so Renato lived between Los Angeles, Miami, and New York, growing up in a constant intersection of cultures that shaped his cosmopolitan character and broadened his worldview. Meanwhile, in Mexico and much of Latin America, his father was consolidating an indelible legacy in the collective memory thanks to his participation in numerous Disney productions. He performed the songs of adult Simba in The Lion King, voiced the shaman in Pocahontas, and sang the theme, "You've Got a Friend in Me," in Toy Story. The Lopez name was already associated with art and music. So, it was no surprise that Renato's career began very early. At age 6, he was starring in commercials in both Mexico and the United States. His naturalness in front of the camera caught the attention of producers and advertisers, making him a frequent face on screen. At 9, he discovered the guitar and poured himself into it with discipline. From then on, music stopped being a hobby and became a vocation. But talent wasn't enough. Renato wanted to go further. He studied music and theater in the United States with teachers of extensive experience and complemented his training at one of the most prestigious and demanding dramatic art schools in New York, recognized for its rigorous focus on acting technique. During his adolescence, he joined a rock band as a guitarist. With the group, he signed a contract with an independent label and even shared the stage with recognized international alternative rock bands. An experience that took him to different stages and consolidated his place in the music circuit. Thus, between acting and music, Renato began to build his own path, beyond the weight of his last name. Meanwhile, his sisters, Denise and Stephanie, also followed creative paths. One as a singer and DJ, and the other as a prominent comedian and performing artist. In 2006, in parallel with the demanding dynamic of tours, rehearsals, and constant networking, Renato expanded his horizons by joining a Spanish-speaking youth channel belonging to a major US network, where he began hosting entertainment and live music shows. Shortly after, he made the leap to a recognized music channel in Mexico, hosting different shows dedicated to the pop and alternative scene. His uninhibited and fresh style quickly made him a sought-after interviewer. Not surprisingly, international figures like Penelope Cruz, Lady Gaga, Samuel L. Jackson, and Tom Cruise passed in front of his cameras. At just 25, Renato was already a consolidated face on Latin American music television. In 2009, his personal life took an important turn when he met Alexandra Ivanišević, a Swedish blogger living in Mexico who wrote about lifestyle, fashion, and travel. The connection was immediate. Within months, they began a relationship that would span years and, over time, would also become inevitably linked to the story that no one imagined then. While his relationship progressed away from the spotlight, his career was also undergoing decisive changes. In 2011, he participated in a Gloria Trevi music video, further expanding his media exposure. That same year, the rock band he was part of dissolved, closing an intense chapter. But far from meaning a setback, it was a turning point, because television opened its doors to him again. In 2012, he joined an international entertainment channel as the host of a show focused on fashion and style for all of Latin America. It coincided with his 30th birthday, a stage he described as one of fulfillment and professional expansion. But that sense of stability didn't lead him to settle. In interviews, he expressed his desire to diversify his career, host, act, and keep creating music. Many saw that ambition as a difficult challenge to sustain, but Renato was determined to try, and he didn't take long to prove it. Shortly after, he took a firm step towards cinema by joining the cast of a Mexican romantic comedy alongside established screen figures. For many, that participation was confirmation that he wasn't just a charismatic host, but an actor capable of inhabiting a character and connecting with the audience through fiction. His artistic restlessness, however, didn't stop there. In 2013, he also began to stand out as a songwriter. He co-wrote a song for singer Patti Cantu and collaborated on musical projects with recognized artists like Paulina Rubio and Belanova. Music, which had begun as a childhood discovery, was now consolidating as a professional space where he could create, contribute, and stay relevant within the industry. In that context, we reach 2016, a time when Renato was at the peak of his career. At just 33, he had consolidated his position as a TV host, rising actor, musician, and entrepreneur. His name appeared on magazine covers, in entertainment shows, and in collaborations with international artists. For the industry, he represented the profile of young talent who seemed to have it all: charisma, discipline, and a promising future. That same year, in collaboration with a sustainable brand, he launched a line of boots that carried his personal stamp. The project reflected his interest in diversifying his work and proving he could successfully venture not only into entertainment, but also into the business world. His entrepreneurial spirit drove him to explore new opportunities, always with great enthusiasm. The premiere of the movie Machos marked another important moment. Renato attended red carpets, gave interviews, and spoke with pride about his participation in the film. Shortly after, he traveled with Alexandra to the wedding of a recognized Mexican actress and an influential producer in the medium. Close friends described him as happy, relaxed, and confident. Nothing foreshadowed what would happen days later. On November 23, 2016, Renato received a job offer that, on the surface, was hard to refuse. It was an invitation to become the face of a real estate campaign in the state of Mexico. The pay exceeded what he usually received for similar jobs, a detail that reinforced the legitimacy of the offer. He decided not to go alone. He was accompanied by his friend and close collaborator, public relations specialist Omar Giron. That Wednesday, they left by car, convinced they were heading to a professional meeting. The pay exceeded what he usually received for similar jobs, a detail that reinforced the legitimacy of the offer. He decided not to go alone. He was accompanied by his friend and close collaborator, public relations specialist Omar Giron. That Wednesday, they left by car, convinced they were heading to a professional meeting. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Hours earlier, Renato had posted a photo on social media. He had been in the state of Mexico for less than 24 hours and was already saying he missed the beach. A simple, everyday message, the last one that would be recorded. After that, silence. Calls went unanswered, messages were left unread, and as the afternoon progressed, concern began to turn into alarm. Around 3, both were reported missing. A couple of hours later, that same day, in a wooded area with little traffic, some residents claimed to have heard gunshots coming from an isolated spot near an old, inactive mining area. However, the first patrols that went to the scene found no conclusive evidence. There were no clear witnesses or obvious traces to explain what happened. It wasn't until the morning of November 24th, when, in that same spot, a resident discovered an abandoned vehicle on a dirt road. Once the authorities were notified and arrived at the scene, they confirmed that inside the vehicle were the lifeless bodies of Renato and Omar. The car had visible bullet holes in the windshield and bodywork, unmistakable signs that it had been a direct and deliberate attack. Even more disturbing was that the dirt road connected to an exclusive residential area nearby, made up of gated communities with private security and a constant police presence. The question was inevitable. How could such a crime be committed in an environment that, in theory, was under control? Before we continue, let's take a quick break. If you're finding this video interesting, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. That really helps us to keep making more videos and telling these kinds of true stories. That said, now let's continue with the story. According to the investigators' preliminary reconstruction, both would have driven to the agreed-upon point. Then, everything indicated that the attack would have occurred right there, inside the vehicle, before they could get out. Ballistics tests recorded 13 shots from a 9mm weapon fired from more than 1.5 meters away. The precision and trajectory reinforced the hypothesis of a direct attack. Renato was in the passenger seat. Omar, at the wheel, still had his seatbelt on. That detail proved revealing. There was no struggle or attempt to flee. They simply had no chance to react. That same night, Renato's family confirmed the news, which spread quickly and caused a wave of shock. Entertainment figures and colleagues publicly expressed their grief. The impact was deep. A young artist in full ascent had lost his life suddenly and violently. The wake was held in private, at a funeral home in Mexico City, under a strict atmosphere of discretion and deep pain. Co-workers and close friends came to say goodbye in an intimate ceremony marked by emotion and silence. The vast majority avoided making statements to the press. The family had asked for respect and privacy, and that was the small but firm gesture with which those who loved him decided to accompany the grief. Days later, Renato was buried in one of the capital's most iconic cemeteries, where recognized figures of national entertainment rest. There ended the public story of a young man whose career seemed to be just beginning. The case shocked the country. The news spread quickly and left a sense of disbelief, especially because it involved a public figure in full ascent. Renato was not an unknown. His constant presence in media and projects had made him a familiar face. That's why the disbelief was even greater when it was learned that he had gone to a work meeting and never returned. Days later, in December, the state attorney general's office confirmed what many suspected. It was not a robbery or a chance encounter that went wrong. It was a premeditated attack. The supposed job offer had been the bait for a carefully planned ambush. To get there, investigators had analyzed the close circle of both Renato and Omar. That was how, thanks to emails and call logs, they understood they had fallen into a trap. The first lines of investigation pointed to a possible personal motive directed specifically at Renato. There was talk of private conflicts and prior tensions. But who had really summoned him? What interests were hidden behind the supposed job offer? The questions multiplied while the investigation was just beginning. The context didn't help dispel doubts. The area where the bodies were found had a history of criminal activity. And around that time, other bodies had been found in nearby areas. That coincidence fueled initial speculation about a possible link to organized crime. However, as the investigation progressed, no evidence emerged linking Renato to illegal activities. The hypothesis took another direction. Meanwhile, security cameras installed at nearby entrances and roads proved key. In the recordings, two vehicles were observed: the car in which Renato and Omar were traveling, and a second car that, according to the investigation, was guiding them, marking the route to the place where they would later be attacked. The frame-by-frame analysis of those videos allowed the reconstruction of that afternoon's journey and identified characteristics of the lead vehicle, including possible license plates. That piece was decisive in narrowing the search. In addition, the cameras made it possible to find the escape route of the SUV in which the perpetrators were traveling. Shortly after, authorities announced the arrest of two suspected accomplices, Mario Alberto and Jose Pedro. According to the official version, a person had contacted Renato and Omar to meet around 5:30 in the afternoon, near an educational center located in an exclusive residential area. There, an individual in another car would make contact with them and lead them to the final meeting point, in a wooded municipality with low traffic. The hypothesis proposed that the attack had been ordered by a third party who, at that time, had not yet been identified. According to the investigation, Mario Alberto was the one who contacted them under the pretext of a job opportunity. Jose Pedro, for his part, was identified as the driver of the vehicle that guided them to the agreed point. Both were accused as likely responsible for the crime of qualified homicide and transferred to a state prison located in the northern metropolitan area. There they were placed at the disposal of a judge, who bound them over for trial and set a 2-month deadline for the close of the complementary investigation. Meanwhile, Renato's memory remained alive. In 2017, the movie Me Gusta Pero Me Asusta was released posthumously, the last film project in which he had participated. The film was received by many as an involuntary tribute, a farewell on the big screen that allowed him to be seen once more in the place where he felt fulfilled, in front of the camera. In parallel, away from the artistic spotlight, the investigation took its course, and public interest did not wane. In that context, Alexandra's life was exposed in an unexpected way. In the midst of grief, she had to face rumors, comments, and speculation. An uncomfortable reminder of how, in high-profile cases, the line between the private and the public is quickly erased. Despite everything, on Valentine's Day, Alexandra decided to share a gesture that took many by surprise. She posted a sweet video of the moment she and Renato had gotten engaged, a detail that was unknown to many. In the post, she wrote that maybe they would marry in another life, and that she would never forget that day. For months, the case file progressed away from the spotlight. Between hearings, evidence analysis, and proceedings, the case took its course, but with almost no information reaching the public. Until 2018 arrived, and everything took a turn. Renato's name occupied headlines and conversations again. Thanks to progress in the investigation, evidence analysis, and statements from one of the suspected accomplices, in May, almost a year and a half after the events, authorities announced the arrest of a third suspect. It was a man identified as Ricardo, pointed out as an alleged direct participant in the attack. Months later, toward the end of that same year, a fourth detainee fell, Adrian. Authorities identified him as the alleged shooter, and he was bound over for trial for the crime of homicide. But 2018 also marked another chapter in this story. The announcement of Alexandra's engagement to a lawyer, one of Renato's close friends, generated mixed reactions. For some, it was difficult news to process. For others, a personal decision that belonged only to her and her own life. On social media, Alexandra spoke about it, and shared a message that tried to put that unexpected turn into words. She said that sometimes life finds strange ways of bringing people together. As for the investigation, the process took about 3 years to reach a formal conclusion. It wasn't until 2019 that those involved received sentences ranging from over 40 to 55 years in prison, depending on the degree of participation, in addition to financial penalties. Finally, the investigation concluded that the motive was related to a conflict of a passionate nature. According to what was established, the romantic partner of one of the accused was in a relationship with Renato, a situation that would have generated tension and triggered the direct confrontation between those involved. According to the prosecution's version, that conflict escalated to the decision to order the attack that ended his life. However, the full content of the statements and all the details that supported that line of investigation were not made public. Part of the file remains under judicial seal, which means certain elements of the case are still not officially known. In this way, the judicial process achieved a legal but partial closure. The resolution did not erase the emotional impact that the loss left on the family, the artistic community, and Renato's followers. Because beyond the convictions, an irreplaceable truth remains. No sentence compensates for the absence. His story also left a broader reflection. It exposed the vulnerability of public figures, the constant exposure, and the speed with which trust can turn into risk. And at the same time, it highlighted a deeper context of violence that runs through so many cut-short stories. Today, Renato Lopez is remembered as a multifaceted artist, host, actor, musician, songwriter, and entrepreneur. His legacy lives on in every project he participated in, and in the mark he left on those who knew him and the audience that followed him. The case of his death showed how fragile the contrast between success and tragedy can be. An apparently ordinary invitation, a trip that seemed routine, and in a matter of hours, everything changed. To talk about Renato is to talk about talent and a life that was moving forward with its own momentum. It is also to remember how close brightness and darkness can be. His departure left a mark that is not erased with time, because beyond the judicial process, the memory of an artist whose career seemed to be just entering its best stage remains. Perhaps that is the deepest lesson. Behind the public name, there was a person. And his story reminds us that no explanation can replace a life. Now that you know all the details about this shocking case, do you think the investigation and the authorities acted with sufficient speed and transparency? Or do you think there were dark areas that were never fully cleared up? Leave us your opinion in the comments. And well, dear audience, that's it for another investigation. What do you think of today's case? We would really like to read your comments, as your opinion on the cases is very important to us. Please remember to always do so with the utmost respect possible, both for the victim and for other viewers, and us who will be reading you. Before you go, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to share this video if you think someone you know might be interested. See you in another criminal investigation. Goodbye.